Welcome back to PS Choudhary. This is the final video of Chapter 2 on citizenship. In this video, we cover the most important recent developments on citizenship-related matters that you need to know for your exam. These are not just facts to memorize. Each development connects to the constitutional principles we studied in this chapter. Let us go through the key developments. The first and most significant development is the notification of the Citizenship Amendment Act rules in March 2024. The Citizenship Amendment Act was passed by Parliament in December 2019, but for nearly 4 years after that, no rules were issued to implement it. This meant that while the law existed, nobody could actually apply for citizenship under it because the application process had not been specified. In March 2024, just before the general elections, the government finally notified the Citizenship Amendment Act rules. The rules established an online portal through which eligible applicants can submit their applications for citizenship. The applications are processed by an empowered committee at the national level. The timing of the notification, just before elections, was politically significant and noted by many observers. But constitutionally, the important point is that the law is now operational. Applications are being received and processed. The Supreme Court challenge to the Citizenship Amendment Act continues. More than 200 petitions have been filed by various individuals and organizations, including the Indian Union Muslim League. The Supreme Court has admitted these petitions and has asked the government to respond. But as of 2025, the Supreme Court has not stayed the law's operation, meaning the Citizenship Amendment Act is active and applications are being processed even while the constitutional challenge is pending. The second important development is the status of the National Register of Citizens in Assam. The National Register of Citizens exercise in Assam was completed in 2019. It resulted in approximately 19 lakh people, meaning about 1.9 million people, being left out of the final list. These people are not automatically declared illegal immigrants. They have the right to appeal before foreigners' tribunals. Those who fail in their appeals could face detention or deportation proceedings. This is a sensitive and ongoing situation. Many of those excluded from the National Register of Citizens in Assam claim they are genuine Indian citizens whose documents were not accepted or whose paperwork was incomplete. Concerns have been raised about due process in the foreigners' tribunals, about the capacity of detention centers, and about the risk of statelessness for people excluded from the register who cannot be deported because no country is willing to accept them. For UPSC, the key constitutional angle here is the right to life and personal liberty under Article 21, which the Supreme Court has held includes the right to fair process before any deprivation. Detention of persons whose citizenship is in question raises serious due process concerns that connect directly to what you studied in Chapter 8 about emergency provisions in Article 21. The third important development concerns the nationwide National Register of Citizens. There has been significant public debate and concern about whether the government plans to conduct a nationwide National Register of Citizens exercise, meaning extending the kind of exercise done in Assam to the whole country. The government has not officially announced any such nationwide exercise. Union Home Ministers have made statements at various times, both suggesting and not suggesting a nationwide exercise. Constitutionally, a nationwide National Register of Citizens would be an enormously complex undertaking. It would require all citizens to prove their citizenship through documents. Given that millions of poor, rural, and marginalized Indians do not have adequate documentation, such an exercise could result in genuine citizens being excluded. The concerns raised by civil society connect to the right to life under Article 21, equality under Article 14, and the fundamental right to be recognized as a citizen that flows from the Constitution. The fourth development is the continuing judicial oversight of detention of persons whose citizenship is in question. The Supreme Court has been monitoring the conditions of detention centers in Assam, where persons excluded from the National Register of Citizens are held. The court has given directions on the maximum period of detention, on the right to legal representation, and on the conditions inside these centers. This is a live area of constitutional litigation that connects to habeas corpus, Article 21, and the broader question of how the state treats persons whose legal status is uncertain. The fifth development is the ongoing debate about statelessness. India is not a signatory to the United Nations Refugee Convention of 1951. This means India does not have a formal domestic refugee law. The Citizenship Amendment Act creates a partial domestic substitute for religious minorities from 3 specific countries. But it leaves out many categories of persecuted people, including Rohingya Muslims from Myanmar, Tamil refugees from Sri Lanka, and others. The question of how India should handle refugees who are not covered by the Citizenship Amendment Act and who have no formal legal status remains a significant constitutional and policy question. Courts have been called upon to examine whether even undocumented persons have rights under Article 21 and Article 14, and whether the state can arbitrarily detain or deport them. The Supreme Court's position, drawing from its interpretation of Article 21, is that even non-citizens have the right to life and personal liberty. The state cannot deprive any person of these rights without following a fair legal process. This position protects even persons without citizenship status from completely arbitrary state action. For your UPSC mains answers on citizenship, these current developments give you rich material to connect constitutional principles to real events. The Citizenship Amendment Act connects to Article 14 equality and basic structure secularism. The National Register of Citizens connects to Article 21 due process and the right to fair procedure. The refugee question connects to India's international obligations and constitutional values. Now here is your final MCQ for Chapter 2. Which of the following statements about the National Register of Citizens in Assam and the Citizenship Amendment Act is most accurate as of 2025? Option 1. The National Register of Citizens exercise in Assam resulted in approximately 19 lakh persons being excluded, and the Supreme Court has stayed the Citizenship Amendment Act implementation pending final constitutional determination. Option 2. The National Register of Citizens exercise in Assam is completed. Approximately 19 lakh persons were excluded from the final list with appeal rights available, and the Citizenship Amendment Act is operational after its rules were notified in March 2024, though the constitutional challenge is still pending before the Supreme Court. Option 3. The Citizenship Amendment Act applies to all persecuted religious minorities from all neighboring countries, and the National Register of Citizens has been completed across all states of India. Option 4. The Supreme Court has upheld the Citizenship Amendment Act as fully constitutional and dismissed all challenges against it. Think carefully. The correct answer is Option 2. The National Register of Citizens exercise in Assam was completed in 2019 with approximately 19 lakh persons excluded. Those excluded have the right to appeal. The Citizenship Amendment Act rules were notified in March 2024, making the law operational. But the constitutional challenge is still pending before the Supreme Court, which has not yet given its final judgment on the validity of the law and has also not stayed its implementation. Option 1 is wrong because the Supreme Court has not stayed the implementation. Option 3 is wrong because the Citizenship Amendment Act covers only 3 specific countries and 6 specific religions. Option 4 is wrong because no final constitutional judgment has been delivered. That is it for Chapter 2, Citizenship. You have now covered citizenship at commencement under Articles 5 to 9, the Citizenship Act of 1955 with all 5 methods of acquisition, the 3 methods of loss of citizenship, India's choice of single citizenship and its implications, the critical differences between NRI, PIO, and OCI, the Citizenship Amendment Act of 2019 with its constitutional dimensions, and the most important current developments on citizenship. See you in the next chapter on PS Choudhary.